The message lit up my phone at 1:17 a.m. I almost ignored it, figured it was David sending another meme or some half-baked midnight theory about why my coffee machine hated him. But the subject line froze me. "You should see this before she does." I opened it. A screenshot. No, an entire scroll of them, stacked in brutal succession. A group chat. 15 executives. My wife's executives. The words bled into each other like acid. She's still reading from the old script Damian left her. Pathetic. Queen puppet with a diamond leash. Funny how she pretends to decide. She just repeats lines. Kai doesn't even realize he married a mouthpiece. My thumb slipped. The phone almost fell. For a second, I couldn't tell if the heat in my chest was fury or shame. Both, probably. They weren't just mocking her. They were mocking me. The scroll went on. Contracts. Leaked directives. Notes that matched the exact phrasing Serena had used in press releases, the ones I thought she'd written. She hadn't. They were recycled Damian scripts, word for word. I whispered it out loud before I could stop myself. Script. The room suddenly felt smaller. The glow of the city skyline outside our penthouse window wasn't comforting, it was accusatory, as if every tower had been watching, laughing along with them. I tried to breathe. I tried to think. Serena was asleep in the next room, probably curled on her side, breathing that shallow rhythm she always did after nights spent burying herself in contracts. My wife. The woman I'd defended against rumors, vultures, gossip. But the screen burned in my hand, and the words were still there. She doesn't even deny it. I don't know how long I sat there staring. Long enough for the air to turn stale. Long enough for the carpet to feel like quicksand under my feet. Finally, I stood. My body moved before my brain caught up. I shoved the door open. Serena stirred. She blinked against the light, squinting at me like I was a shadow that didn't belong. "Ethan, what time is it? Look at this." I threw the phone onto the bed. It landed by her hand, screen still glowing. She picked it up. "Read." Her pupils dilated, then flicked to me. For one heartbeat, I expected denial, outrage, a curse against whoever leaked it. Instead, nothing. Her face locked into that flawless CEO mask. "Where did you get this?" she asked. "Don't." My voice cracked. "Don't turn this into some PR cleanup. Is it true?" She stayed silent. Silence heavier than words. The hum of the city outside, the faint buzz of the AC unit, all louder than her. "Serena." I snapped. My hands were fists. "Is it true? Have you been letting Damien script you this whole time?" Her jaw flexed. That was the only movement. I felt the floor tilt under me. Everything we'd built, no, everything I thought we'd built, cracked like glass. I saw her first investor pitch in my head, the trembling confidence I thought was hers. Our late-night strategy sessions where she claimed, "This line will win them." The public interviews where she dazzled. All borrowed. All stolen. All written for her. "You don't understand," she whispered finally. "Then make me understand." She looked at me, and for the first time since I'd known her, her eyes weren't sharp or proud. They were hollow. Like she was looking past me, at something written behind my back. Before she could speak, my phone buzzed again. A new message. Unknown number. Just 3 words. "Careful. He's watching." I froze. My throat went dry. Another buzz. This time, longer. "Careful. You don't even know the role you're playing." And beneath it, a name that made my blood ice. Damian Cross. I didn't sleep. Not a second. I lay next to Serena, staring at the ceiling, feeling the distance between us like a canyon. She slept soundly, or at least she pretended to. That was her gift, wasn't it? Pretending. Holding a mask so perfectly no one could see the cracks until they were already falling through. The chat messages replayed in my head. Every word. Every sneer. And then Damian's text, curling around my brain like smoke. "You don't even know the role you're playing." The bastard was right. I didn't know. But as the hours crawled, I started piecing together the scraps of memory, moments I'd brushed off before. And suddenly, they weren't scraps. They were the whole damn play. Her voice. That was the first thing. I remembered the investor dinner last spring. She stood, raised her glass, and said, "Innovation is not about creating the future. It's about scripting it before anyone else does." Everyone clapped, nodded. I applauded her brilliance. But now, replaying it in my head, I realized it wasn't Serena. The cadence was wrong. She spoke it too smoothly, too memorized. Like an actress delivering lines on stage. And then I remembered 2 months later, at a televised interview, she said almost the same thing, only this time, the phrasing was slightly different. Still flawless. Still rehearsed. Scripted. Her decisions were another thread. There was the time she vetoed an expansion idea I'd pitched late at night, something about partnering with smaller indie developers to give them more control. She dismissed it instantly. Not scalable. Not profitable enough. At the time, I chalked it up to her being ruthless, practical. But now, her rejection sounded mechanical, like a line read. Later, I discovered Damien had said the same exact words to the board 2 weeks earlier. Word for word. And the strangest thing, her predictability. I used to joke about it. I could guess what she'd say before she said it. Whether it was about the company, the investors, or even what wine she'd order at a restaurant. I thought it meant I knew her better than anyone else. But maybe it wasn't intimacy. Maybe she was just following a script so rigidly that anyone paying attention could predict her. The weight of that realization sat like iron on my chest. I rolled out of bed quietly, careful not to wake her, and wandered into my office. The city outside was sliding into dawn, towers glowing like embers. My desk was cluttered with sketches, blueprints, code drafts, pieces of my own dream. I sat there, staring at them, reminding myself I still had something that was mine. My project wasn't just code. It was a rebellion. A platform where people weren't pushed into roles, manipulated by algorithms, or fed predetermined scripts of who they should be. A digital space where creativity wasn't commodified, where people could actually be free. That was my obsession. My North Star. And maybe that's why Damian hated me so much. Because I wasn't just Serena's husband. I was building something he couldn't script. By the time Serena's press event rolled around that evening, I had rehearsed 100 different ways to confront her. To ask again, in public this time, if she was still his puppet. But when I saw her step onto the stage, bathed in the spotlight, I froze. She looked immaculate. Black silk dress, hair pinned like armor, eyes scanning the crowd with calculated precision. The Serena veil the world loved. And I hated myself for it, but part of me still loved her too. Even if she was reading from someone else's lines. She opened with confidence, her voice cutting through the applause. Tonight, we celebrate not just numbers, not just profits, but the vision that drives us forward. The crowd leaned in, hanging on her every syllable. Investors, press, influencers. Wolves in suits. I forced myself to listen carefully. Every word. And that's when I saw him. Damien. He was standing just off stage, near the curtains. Not visible to most of the crowd, but visible to me. Leaning forward. Smiling that serpent smile. Whispering. Serena's eyes flickered. Just a twitch, but I caught it. She stumbled for half a second, her rhythm breaking, before snapping back to the script. But I saw it. She was faltering. Because of him. My stomach dropped. The air in the auditorium suddenly felt too thin. Damien looked right at me then. He mouthed 2 words. Your turn. The boardroom smelled like money and fear. Polished oak table, 2 long conference chairs, the kind of air conditioning that hums so steady it feels like static in your skull. Screens glowed with charts and projections, but nobody cared about the numbers. Not really. Everyone's eyes were on her. Serena sat at the head of the table, shoulders squared, perfect posture, hands folded like she'd rehearsed the pose. The CEO mask was back in place. You'd never guess she'd faltered the night before on stage. And beside her, like a shadow with a pulse, sat Damien. He didn't belong at that table anymore. He'd sold his shares, stormed out in dramatic betrayal years ago. But somehow, here he was again, lounging like a king on borrowed land. I slid into a seat across from them. Didn't bother hiding my glare. The meeting began. One of the board members cleared his throat. So, about the Q4 projections. But Damien cut in smoothly, without even glancing at the charts. Serena will say we need to diversify revenue streams. She'll stress expansion into Southeast Asia as a strategic priority. Then she'll pivot to AI integration, though she won't address the risks. Correct? Every head turned to Serena. She blinked, just once. Then she nodded. Yes. That's the outline I had prepared. Prepared. The word hit me like a punch. Damien smiled, leaning back. I know. A low murmur rippled through the room. Nobody laughed, but the silence was worse than laughter. As the meeting dragged on, the pattern repeated. Whenever a question arose, logistics, budget allocation, even PR, Damian spoke first. Not answering, predicting. Like a magician calling the next card before it flipped. She'll say sustainability is non-negotiable. She'll call this deal a long-term win, though it bleeds short-term. She'll remind us of values-driven leadership. And each time, Serena confirmed it. Word for word. Like a ventriloquist's dummy waiting for her cue. I felt my stomach twist. I used to admire her precision, her control, the way she could shut down a room with one decisive phrase. But now, watching Damian mouth her lines before she did, I realized control was the one thing she didn't have. She wasn't controlling the room. She was being read like a script. And the worst part? No one else seemed to care. The board members just nodded, took notes, and pretended this wasn't obscene. That their CEO wasn't being puppeted in plain daylight. I sat back in my chair, distancing myself. My arms crossed. I didn't interrupt, didn't defend. Instead, I watched. Every twitch. Every glance. The way Damian's lips curved a half-second before Serena spoke. The way she didn't even look at him, didn't dare, but her body tensed like she felt his breath on her neck anyway. I am analyzing now. Not just angry. And the more I saw, the clearer it became, she wasn't trapped by incompetence. She was trapped by design. Damian didn't just know her. He owned her timing. The meeting neared its end. Numbers forgotten, projections buried under the weight of the real show, the Serena and Damian act. Finally, Damian leaned forward. His voice dropped, just enough to make the room lean in. You know, he said softly, eyes on Serena but loud enough for us all, I wrote her first lines. He turned his gaze to me, piercing, smiling. I can write her last. The ballroom smelled of champagne and vanity. Crystal chandeliers rained light onto sequined gowns and tailored suits. Waiters floated by with silver trays, glasses clinking like tiny bells. A charity gala, they called it. But no one here cared about the cause. It was a theater. Deals in whispers. Power dressed as generosity. I shouldn't have come. But staying home would have felt like surrender. So I buttoned the suit Serena had chosen months ago, fixed my tie in the mirror, and told myself I'd stand tall. Watch. Learn. Not flinching. The moment I walked in, I spotted them. Serena. Damian. Side by side at the far end of the room, framed by cameras and sycophants. She looked like a painting, black dress shimmering with every flash, her laugh sharp and controlled. And Damian? He looked too comfortable. Like he owned the frame. And God help me, but they laughed together like they'd never stopped. I froze, a glass of bourbon untouched in my hand, watching them. The crowd melted around them. Every gesture was perfectly choreographed, the tilt of her chin, the way he leaned in just close enough to brush her arm but not close enough to scandalize. A dance. And the room adored it. Reporters scribbled. Investors nodded. Cameras captured. The CEO and her charming former partner, reunited for charity. I felt my jaw tighten. The bourbon burned when I swallowed, though I hadn't even tasted it. I caught fragments of her voice across the distance. Too polished, too smooth. Probably a line Damian fed her an hour earlier. My phone buzzed. A text from Serena. Smile. Don't make this harder. Harder for who? For me, choking in the shadows while she played dress up with my enemy. Something in me snapped. I pulled the phone from my pocket. Stared at her name, glowing on the screen. The history of our conversation scrolled below. Every promise, every late-night whisper, every moment I thought was ours alone. I pressed block number. The confirmation window blinked at me, asking if I was sure. I pressed yes. It was petty. Childish, even. But it felt like cutting a chain from my wrist. For the first time in weeks, I could breathe. I slipped the phone back into my pocket, lifted the bourbon, and forced a smile at a nearby executive who thought I was someone worth knowing. But inside, the burn wasn't from the alcohol anymore. It was released. I'd blocked her. Severed the line. And for a heartbeat, I felt untouchable. Until I saw her watching me. Serena's eyes cut through the crowd like a blade. She'd felt it, the disconnect. Like she always did. Her smile didn't falter for the cameras, but her pupils narrowed. Her shoulders stiffened. She whispered something to Damian, excused herself from the circle of admirers, and started walking. No, storming. Her heels stabbed the marble floor with each step, each one echoing louder than the music. The crowd parted like silk curtains as she cut straight toward me. Ethan, she hissed, voice low enough that only I could hear as she grabbed my arm. Her smile for the cameras was still flawless, but her grip was iron. What did you just do? I met her gaze, steady, unflinching. I ended it. Her nails dug into my sleeve. Her breath was warm, furious. Through clenched teeth, she whispered the words like a curse. Undo that. Now. Her grip tightened on my arm like a cuff. Undo it. Now. I laughed under my breath, but there was no humor in it. No, I said. Not this time. The smile on Serena's lips faltered. Not enough for the cameras yet, but enough for me. A hairline fracture in the porcelain mask she'd worn all evening. She leaned closer, whispering through her teeth. You don't understand what you've just done. I pulled my arm free, voice sharper than I intended. No, Serena. I understand exactly what I've done. I cut the leash. Her eyes flashed. Anger, panic, something else I couldn't name. And then, too late, I realized how loud my voice had been. The music was still playing, but softer now. Heads were turning. Cameras shifting like vultures spotting blood. I saw the reporters first, their eyes lighting up like they'd just struck gold. Phones lifted. Lenses zoomed. And then, of course, Damian appeared. Is there a problem here? His voice carried smooth as silk, just loud enough for the nearby crowd to hear. He approached with that predator's grin, arm already extending towards Serena as if to shield her. I wanted to punch the smile off his face. There's no problem, I snapped. Unless you count you. The air snapped taut. A few gasps broke the silence. Damian feigned a frown, tilting his head. Ethan, he said softly, almost mournfully. You've been under so much stress. Everyone can see it. He gestured vaguely toward the crowd, toward the dozens of eyes and lenses fixed on us. Marriage to a CEO isn't easy. Sometimes the pressure makes people unstable. The word hit like a blade. Unstable. The crowd murmured, eating it up. The reporters scribbled harder. My fists clenched. Don't you dare. Jealousy can do strange things, too, Damian interrupted smoothly. He turned to Serena now, his voice dripping with false sympathy. I'm sorry, Serena. I shouldn't have pushed you into inviting him tonight. He's clearly not ready for this world. The humiliation burned hotter than fire. I looked at Serena, waiting for her to snap back, to tell them all Damian was lying, manipulating. That I wasn't crazy. But she didn't. Instead, she stepped slightly in front of him. Defending. Shielding him. Her voice was calm, even gentle, for the cameras, not for me. Damian, please. Don't blame yourself. Ethan's just, adjusting. Adjusting. Like I was some unstable liability she had to explain away. The cameras loved it. The angle was perfect, Serena the composed CEO, Damian the supportive ally, and me, the reckless husband unraveling in public. I wanted to scream. Wanted to grab her shoulders and shake her, demanding she tell the truth. That Damian had scripted her, owned her words, hollowed her into a mouthpiece. But my voice would only prove him right. I swallowed it. The humiliation, the fury, the betrayal, all of it clawed my throat raw, but I swallowed it. Because at that moment, I saw it clearly. They'd won the narrative. For now. The rest of the gala blurred. I don't remember the toasts or the music or the charity auctions. Just the flash of cameras, the sympathetic glances that felt like daggers, the heat of being cast as the unstable outsider in my own life. When it finally ended, I slipped out through the back entrance, my chest hollow. That's when my phone buzzed. Unknown number. I almost ignored it, still raw from blocking Serena earlier. But the preview caught my eye. Short. Sharp. She's not betraying you. She's trapped. Check her contracts. I couldn't sleep. The city outside my apartment was a blur of lights and horns, but my room was silent except for the glow of my phone screen. That message, she's not betraying you. She's trapped. Check her contracts. Replayed in my head like a riddle. Trapped. By what? By Damian? By paperwork? I scrolled through Serena's social media posts for the 100th time, each caption too polished, too clean. Like they'd been drafted by someone else. Hell, maybe they had. My thumb hovered over her name in my contacts. Part of me wanted to unblock her, to call, to demand the truth. Part of me wanted to throw the phone against the wall. Then it buzzed. Blocked number. I froze. The phone kept vibrating in my palm, pulsing like a heartbeat. Finally, I answered. Ethan. Her voice was soft, breaking. I hadn't heard her like this in months. Serena. I whispered. My chest tightened at the sound of her. Where are you? There was a pause, a wet, shaky breath. Then a muffled sob. I can't keep this up. I thought I could. But I can't. My throat burned. Talk to me. What's happening? Words spilled out of her in fragments. Years ago, when the company was small, before I had power, I signed things. Deals Damian brought me. Sponsorships, investors, image management. It was supposed to be temporary. To help me grow. I clenched my jaw. I could already see where this was going. Serena. He owns me, Ethan, she whispered, her voice cracking. Not just the company. Me. My words, my image, my interviews, my speeches, all of it runs through him. Even my laugh tonight, she choked. Even that wasn't mine. Her sob turned into a hollow laugh, bitter and sharp. I'm a CEO with millions watching me, and I don't even own the sentences coming out of my mouth. I pressed a hand against my temple. My heart ached. For her. For us. Then let's fight it, I said. Together. Tear up those contracts, drag him through court, burn the whole damn thing down if we have to. She went quiet. For a moment, I thought the call had dropped. Then her breathing slowed. Her voice changed. Softer. Colder. If you love me, Ethan, you'll stop your project. My stomach dropped. What? Your platform. Your legacy thing you've been building. It threatens Damian's grip. If you walk away from it, if you sacrifice it for me, he'll ease up. My mouth went dry. The project, my years of work, my dream to build something real, unscripted, she was asking me to bury it. For him. I said. You're asking me to give up everything for him. No. For me, she said quickly. Don't you see? If you let it go, I'll be stronger. I'll have room to breathe. To fight. I could hear it in her tone, desperation warped into command. She wasn't just asking. She was testing me. My heart pounded against my ribs. Serena. And then I heard it. A man's voice, faint but unmistakable, dripping with smugness in the background. Tell him everything, Damian said. Or I will. My phone wouldn't stop buzzing. It was still dark outside, but the glow of notifications lit up the ceiling above me like lightning strikes. Dozens, then hundreds, tags, messages, news alerts, trending hashtags. I didn't even want to look. I knew. I felt it in the pit of my stomach. But I did. And there she was. Serena. A high-definition video, clearly filmed at some private gala, had gone viral overnight. She stood at the podium, her gown glimmering under the lights, her smile polished to perfection. Cameras flashed as her voice rang out, smooth, rehearsed. But unmistakably hers. There is one man I owe everything to, she said. The architect of my success. Damian Cross. The audience applauded. Damian stepped into the frame, smug as hell, sliding an arm around her like she was a prize. Serena laughed, a soft, scripted laugh I recognized, the one she practiced in mirrors before events. The caption under the video read, #PowerCouple #ValeAncross #Architect of Success. I dropped the phone onto my chest. My throat tightened, heat stinging behind my eyes. The midnight call, her tears, her trembling voice. Was that even real? Or just another scene Damian wrote for her to play out? I wanted to throw the phone across the room, smash the screen, tear down every trace of her from my life. But I just lay there, numb, staring at the cracks in my ceiling like they had answers. My legacy project, my dream of something unscripted, authentic, felt like a cruel joke in this world where even love was a performance contract. I sat up, wiped my face, and opened my contacts list. My thumb hovered over Serena's name. Block. Delete. Done. The same with our photos, gone, one after another. Each swipe is like tearing a piece of myself out, but cleaner than letting them rot. I told myself this was the end. She was his now. She'd chosen him, or maybe she never had the choice, and that was worse. Either way, I was done bleeding for it. Then a notification popped up. David. Encrypted file transfer. Message attached. You'll want to see this. Damian doesn't just control her, he scripts her enemies too. My heart froze mid-beat. Enemies. That meant me. The first cut was the hardest. Serena's name at the top of my chat list, the thread stretched back years, thousands of messages. Jokes, fights, late-night confessions, will change the world, speeches. My thumb hovered over delete. One tap. Gone. The rest followed faster. Photos, videos, saved voice memos. Each one burned on the way out, but there was a strange clarity to it. Like tearing strings off a puppet until nothing could pull me anymore. By noon, my phone felt lighter. So did I. That was when I opened David's file. Encrypted, layers deep. He'd labeled it simply, strings. Inside were folders, names, contracts, schedules. Some were celebrities, politicians, influencers I half recognized. Others were anonymous, ordinary people whose stories had been manufactured for headlines. And then I saw Serena's. Pages of clauses binding her image rights to Damian's company. Scripts for interviews, pre-drafted answers, approved laugh beats, crisis responses. Notes about her, emotional cadence. Even her so-called scandals, staged arguments, planned leaks, orchestrated tears. My stomach twisted. This wasn't management. This was a theater. A world stage with Damien as director, and everyone else as actors who didn't even know their parts until he handed them the lines. And then, my name. I clicked. A dossier, Ethan Vale. Public notes, brilliant but unstable. Jealous of Damien's influence. Outspoken against scripts. Alienates allies by emotional volatility. Private strategy, position as liability. Drive wedge between him and Serena. Neutralize his platform before it launches. My hands shook against the keyboard. I felt the blood drain from my face. I wasn't just in the story. I'd written it. I slammed the laptop shut. My breath came ragged, fast. Not anymore, I whispered. I had no idea how I'd do it, but I knew one thing, I was done playing his script. I'd burned the stage before I played the villain he wrote for me. That night, after a late meeting with David in a safe cafe on the edge of town, I walked alone through a half-empty parking garage. My footsteps echoed off the concrete. I unlocked my car, slid the file-loaded laptop into the passenger seat, and leaned back against the driver's side door, just trying to breathe. That's when I heard it. A slow clap. The sound bounced through the garage, hollow and sharp. I turned. Damien stepped out of the shadows, dressed too sharply for midnight, his smile thin and predatory. "Well done, Vale," he said softly, the words carrying in the cavernous space. "You've finally figured it out. Took you long enough." I didn't move. My hand tightened around my keys like they were a weapon. He walked closer, shoes clicking against the concrete. His cologne hit me before his face did, expensive, cold. "You think cutting strings makes you free?" he asked, almost amused. "That just makes you more interesting to me. A rogue actor. Do you know what happens to actors who go off script?" I didn't answer. He leaned in close, so close I could see the faint scar on his chin, the slight gleam of sweat under the garage light. His whisper was venom. "Stay in your lane, or the lions eat you too." The first thing I noticed about the new space was the noise. Not the corporate chatter I'd grown used to, not boardroom rehearsals or rehearsed laughter at charity galas. This was messy, alive. Music leaked from one end of the hall, someone argued about camera angles at another, keyboards clattered in erratic bursts. The co-working loft was nothing like Vailteca's glass fortress. The walls here were covered in graffiti, neon post-its, sketches of half-baked inventions. The air smelled like burnt coffee and solder. I breathed it in. For the first time in weeks, I didn't feel like prey. I sat up at a wooden table still scarred with initials carved into it, opening my laptop. No scripts, no handlers, no Damien. Just me, and the skeleton of my dream project. A platform not built to control people, but to unchain them. No filters feeding them what to think. No pre-written responses shaping what they could say. Just raw, uncurated connection. It felt almost impossible in a world where Damien thrived, which was exactly why I needed to build it. Across the loft, two girls were shooting a video about street fashion, laughing at their own bloopers. At the window, a guy was sketching what looked like a comic hero with 3 arms. None of them looked powerful by Damien's definition. And yet, they were free. That freedom was worth more than every contract I'd seen in David's file. I typed for hours, my code sharp and deliberate, each line a rebellion. At night, back in my rented flat, I made the mistake of opening social media. Serena's face filled my feed, her at a product launch, her at a panel, her standing beside Damien at some high-gloss gala. But something was different now that I knew. The light in her eyes wasn't light at all. It was glass. Her smile was tighter, her words in interviews stumbled, then corrected themselves too quickly, as if she was reciting a teleprompter in her skull. And the comments. She doesn't look happy. Why is she parroting the same lines every time? This feels fake. Even the public was starting to see the cracks in her script. I told myself it wasn't my problem anymore. I had cut her out. Cut the strings. Built new ground. But that lie tasted like ash. Because no matter how much I wanted to bury it, I still cared. And seeing Damien suffocate her while parading her in front of the world made my blood run hot. It was past midnight when my phone buzzed. I expected David. Maybe Anna, checking in. But no. The name froze me. Serena Vale. A direct message. Just one line. If you still love me, meet me tomorrow. No one else can know. The words pulsed on the screen, dragging me backward into the fire I thought I'd escaped. I picked the cafe because nobody ever picked it. It sat on the edge of the city, wedged between a shuttered bookstore and a tailor's shop that hadn't changed its window display in a decade. The kind of place where the Wi-Fi cut out randomly, the espresso machine hissed like it hated its job, and the barista barely looked up from his crossword. Perfect for being invisible. When Serena walked in, invisibility shattered. She was dressed impeccably, as always, her navy coat perfectly cut, hair falling like silk, but the rest of her betrayed her. Her shoulders slumped under a weight no fashion could hide. Her eyes darted like she was checking for snipers. And her hands, they trembled as she slid into the booth across from me. For a moment, we just sat there. Her eyes on mine, mine on hers. The silence was so sharp it felt like it could cut skin. Then her voice cracked the air, low and raw. Ethan, I can't keep doing this. I didn't rush her. I didn't reach across the table, didn't grab her hand the way I would have months ago. I just waited, watching. She swallowed hard, lips trembling. He's draining me. Draining the company. Every deal, every launch, he takes his cut, he scripts the lines, he makes me the mouthpiece while he bleeds us dry. I'm a CEO only on paper. Her words spilled fast, almost desperate. Her eyes flicked around, making sure no one was listening. You don't know what it's like, she whispered. Waking up every morning knowing the world thinks you're powerful, but you can't even choose the words out of your own mouth. He owns me, Ethan. And it's killing me. I clenched my jaw. A part of me wanted to believe her, to take her hand, to say I'd save her, that together we'd burn Damien's empire down to ash. Another part screamed this could be another script, another performance. Why me? My voice came out rougher than I intended. Why now? Her eyes brimmed with something between guilt and hope. Because you're the only one who ever saw me. The real me. Before all this. And because, her voice broke, a whisper now. Because I still love you. My chest tightened. It should have been the words I wanted to hear. But they didn't feel clean. They felt like they'd been dragged through glass. Love doesn't look like defending Damien while the cameras tore me apart, I said, sharper now. It doesn't look like letting him own you while you stood there silent. She flinched. I didn't have a choice. I leaned forward, eyes locked on hers. There's always a choice, Serena. Even if it costs everything. Her breath caught. For the first time, her mask cracked completely, tears spilling down her face. She reached across the table, fingers trembling as they brushed mine. Please, Ethan. Help me break free. Help me end this. I can't do it without you. Her words sliced through me, dragging up the old loyalty I thought I'd buried. The urge to protect her, to believe her, burned inside me. But then, a shadow slid across the table. A hand, deliberate, heavy, landed on Serena's shoulder. I looked up. And there he was. Damien. His smile was casual, his suit immaculate, his eyes lit with the kind of smugness only predators carried. Touching reunion, he said smoothly, leaning just close enough to make Serena flinch. But did you really think she came alone? Damien's hand on her shoulder was a leash. You could see it in the way her body stiffened, the way her voice caught in her throat before she even tried to speak again. He didn't have to raise his voice. He didn't even have to look at me. His presence was enough. Serena's eyes flickered between us, wide, almost panicked. She stopped. Her lips trembled. She swallowed hard, like the words tasted like acid. Damien's smile sharpened. Go on, Serena. Don't leave him hanging. He's owed the truth, isn't he? I wanted to punch that smug look off his face. But I stayed seated, fingers curling against the edge of the table until my knuckles went white. Finally, Serena spoke. Her voice was brittle, a glass about to shatter. Ethan. I wasn't forced at first. The words punched the air out of my lungs. I chose him, she said quickly, before I could speak. I thought Damian was the answer. He promised strength. He promised I'd never have to be the weak girl standing behind you, or anyone else, ever again. He gave me a script, a role, and I stepped into it. I let him rewrite me because I thought that's what power was. Her shoulders slumped, tears streaking her carefully painted face. By the time I realized the script wasn't mine, it was too late. He owned everything. My company, my image, my words, even the way I breathe in public. Damian chuckled low, patting her shoulder as if she were some loyal pet. She forgets the part where she begged for the deal. Shut up, she snapped, sudden fire sparking through her voice. Her hand slammed against the table, rattling the untouched coffee cups. Just shut up. The cafe had gone silent. Even the barista pretended to rearrange cups so he could eavesdrop without looking obvious. Serena turned back to me. Her eyes burned with something between shame and desperation. I don't expect forgiveness, she whispered. But please, Ethan, don't leave me in this cage. You're the only one who ever believed in me. Without you, I'm nothing but his puppet. I stared at her. Part of me wanted to spit the truth back at her, that she'd made her choice, that she'd stood by while Damien turned me into a villain for the world to mock. Another part, the part that remembered late nights when she'd laughed freely, when her smile wasn't staged, that part ached. Why now? My voice cracked on the question. Why tell me all this now, when the damage is already done? Her hand trembled as it reached across the table, barely brushing mine. Because you're the only one who might still care enough to help me. I froze. My pulse was hammered. Caring was dangerous. Caring was what Damien wanted, to weaponize her against me. But damn it, my heart didn't listen to logic. Her eyes shimmered, locking on mine. Then, softer than breath, she leaned forward. I still love you, she whispered. But I might destroy you before I can save you. The words seared into me, more terrifying than Damien's threats. Because she meant them. And I had no idea whether she'd already started. The morning after her words, I couldn't shake them. I still love you. But I might destroy you before I can save you. They gnawed at me, like a splinter buried too deep to dig out. For hours I stared at my phone, waiting for a message from her that never came. My hand hovered over her contact, my thumb itching to type something, anything. An apology. A warning. A promise. But in the end, I did the opposite. I blocked her. The silence that followed wasn't peace. It was brutal, raw, like stepping out of a burning building and realizing the smoke still clung to your skin. That night, I sat at my desk, the glow of my laptop washing over me. Serena's world had been Damien's stage for years, a labyrinth of contracts, scripted interviews, staged betrayals. If I stayed near her, I'd keep playing his game. I refused. So I turned to my own dream. The platform I'd envisioned, technology that stripped away manipulation instead of weaponizing it. A system that lets people reclaim their unscripted selves. The idea that once felt naive now burned inside me like a rebellion. David came through first. He linked me with a group of independent developers, people who'd been squeezed out of the mainstream by the same puppet masters Damien worked for. Misfits, rebels, dreamers. My kind of people. We met in co-working spaces that smelled of burnt coffee and stress, crowded apartments with too many laptops and extension cords, late-night diners where ideas spilled faster than the coffee. These weren't polished boardrooms or champagne galas. They were raw, messy, alive. And I breathed easier among them than I had in years. Meanwhile, Serena's face flickered across headlines, not the polished queen of commerce anymore, but a faltering star. Rumors of financial cracks. Photos where her eyes looked vacant, the smile pasted on. Stories of delayed product launches, executives resigning in waves. It hurt to watch. God, it hurts. But I didn't chase her. I couldn't. One night, scrolling through yet another article dissecting her fall from grace, I closed the tab and whispered aloud, she chose her script. I won't let it write to me too. It felt like betrayal, but also survival. Days blurred into weeks. My project grew roots. My circle expanded. For the first time in forever, I wasn't Ethan the shadow of Serena. I was just Ethan. And that felt terrifying, and good. Then Anna called. Her voice was low, urgent, the kind of tone that made the hairs on my neck stand up. I've been digging, she said. Into Damien. Into his contracts, his networks, his history. My heart kicked up. And, you need to hear this face to face, she said. Because Damien's endgame, it's not her. I frowned. Not Serena. Then what? Her next words chilled me to the bone. It's about you, Ethan. The launch wasn't supposed to feel like war. It was just code, servers. A vision stitched together in late-night sprints with too much caffeine and not enough sleep. But when I stood in that crowded hall, Anna at my side, cameras flashing, and saw our platform go live on the big screen, it felt like a declaration. Not just to investors. Not to the press. To myself. For once, I wasn't orbiting Serena's world. I wasn't Damien's target puppet. I was my own center of gravity. Anna nudged me as the audience clapped. Breathe, she whispered. This is only the beginning. Her words grounded me. My chest swelled, not with arrogance, but with relief. I'd finally ripped the chains off. The platform wasn't just technology, it was proof that I could exist unscripted, unchained, unowned. And then, of course, she came back. Serena. I should have known. These stories never end cleanly. She appeared backstage, slipping past security as if she still had the right. Her hair was tied back, eyes hollow but burning. Not the flawless CEO polished by PR. Just Serena. The woman I once loved enough to lose myself for. Her voice cracked the moment she saw me. Ethan. I froze. Part of me wanted to run. The other part wanted to pull her into my arms. Neither one. I just stood there. You did it, she said, her eyes darting to the giant screen behind me where the launch stats scrolled upward. You actually did it without me. Yeah, I said flatly. My voice didn't shake. That was the point. Her lip trembled. I can leave him. Damien. I'll walk away from everything if you'll take me back. I swear to you, I'll burn every contract, every tie. Just, don't shut me out. For a second, God help me, I almost believed her. But then I saw the tell. The way her hands fidgeted, her pupils darting side to side. The desperation wasn't just about me. It was survival. She was drowning, and I was her last oxygen tank. I thought of every line she had spoken to me over the past year. Lines too perfect, too rehearsed, too scripted. I thought of Damien whispering in her ear, feeding her cues. I thought of her standing in front of cameras, defending him while I stood alone. And suddenly, it was clear. She wasn't mine to save. She never was. I stepped closer, close enough that she could see the fire in my eyes, feel the steadiness in my breath. No, I said. Her face crumpled. Ethan, please. You chose your script, I whispered, my voice sharper than any scream. I turned away, my hand brushing against the server rack humming with the life of my platform. I wrote mine. The silence that followed was heavier than applause, heavier than love, heavier than loss. The servers held steady. The launch had survived its first week, traffic pouring in, headlines buzzing, creators flocking to a space that wasn't rigged by hidden contracts or invisible hands. For the first time in a long time, I didn't feel like I was reacting to someone else's story. I was writing mine. Sitting alone in the office, lights dimmed, I let the quiet hum of the machines fill the room. My reflection in the dark window stared back at me, tired, scarred, but unmistakably mine. I pulled out my phone, thumb hovering. Habit had me checking her name. Serena. She was still everywhere, though less radiant than before. The feeds carried grainy clips of her at events, speaking with that same polished cadence, though now it cracked in places. Damien still lingered in her shadow, tightening the strings, but the world was beginning to notice. Some called her a fraud. Others pitied her. A puppet half aware of the strings. I didn't share their hatred. She wasn't my villain. Not anymore. She was just, someone who chose her script. Once, I would have drowned for her. Now, I could only nod at the ghost of what we had. David knocked on the office door and slid in, tossing me a coffee. You look like hell. I smirked. Better than lion's food. He chuckled and dropped into the chair across from me. You realize what you've done, right? This. He gestured at the live dashboard glowing behind me. This is bigger than her, bigger than Damien. It's your mark. I didn't answer. Not because I doubted it, but because I finally believed it. Later, as the building emptied, Anna found me on the rooftop. She didn't say much, just leaned against the railing, watching the city lights with me. Her presence was quiet, unforced. Not a script, just real. And that was enough. The night stretched overhead, velvet and endless. The stars scattered across it like broken glass. For years, I'd looked at them as though someone had arranged them just so, fixed, untouchable, mocking in their perfection. Tonight, they felt different. Not arranged. Not dictated. Infinite. I exhaled, the chill air filling my lungs, and for the first time since Serena's betrayal, the future didn't feel like a line I was meant to follow. It felt like space. It felt free. I tilted my head back, and whispered to the stars. Not to her, not to Damien, not to anyone who had tried to script my life. Just to myself. This time, I said, my voice steady, I choose. And the stars, unscripted, stayed infinite.